Hello and good evening, everybody, and I'd like to welcome you all to a very special episode tonight. We are going to do another episode of Face Off, and the two artists that I have chosen to focus on tonight are, as you can see in front of you, AC/DC and Kiss. Now, why have I chosen these two artists? Well, they both originated right around the same time, the early to mid-70s. They both have very similar approaches. They're both a couple of raunchy rock and roll bands whose lyrics are very sexual in nature. They have similar song structures. A lot of their songs range around the 2 to 3 to 4 minute mark, and so they both have a very simplistic structure. But despite the simplistic structure, they were both major powerhouses in the 70s and kind of cooled off a little bit in the 80s a little bit. But anyways, that's my justification for comparing these two artists. So there you have it. Now, this is how the rules of the game go. I am going to compare the first album by both artists and declare a winner. Then I'm going to compare the second album by both artists and declare a winner. Then I'm going to compare the third album by both artists and declare a winner, so on and so forth until we get to the very end. Now, a couple of things that I need to address. When I do this, I am going to be comparing the original versions of these albums. So we got that out of the way. Second thing, live albums are not included. So Alive and If You Want Blood, You've Got It, they are not part of this episode. Finally, Kiss has 2 more albums than AC/DC does. So I am not going to make it through the entire Kiss catalog. I'm really stretching myself here, and there's just no way I can see doing this in an honest manner. So with Kiss, I am going to stop at Psycho Circus because we are then going to be out of AC/DC albums. So we got that out of the way. Let's go ahead and take a look at round number 1. We have the original High Voltage by AC/DC versus the debut self-titled album by Kiss. Now, AC/DC, around this time period, they had not really fully discovered themselves by this point. I talked about this in a previous episode. This is a very different AC/DC than what we're used to. This is more glammy and blues rock and not the straightforward, full-fledged rock and roll that we're used to. And I always thought some of these songs sounded kind of flat. I mean, we do have a pretty good cover of Baby Please Don't Go. I don't mind Stick Around. I do like Soul Stripper, and Show Business has a nice 50s boogie feel to it. But yeah, She's Got Balls and Little Lover, I always thought were kind of underwhelming. Love Song is way out there in left field. I mean, that is probably the most un-AC/DC sounding AC/DC song I have ever heard. And You Ain't Got a Hold on Me, I always thought it was a little too bluesy when I was a kid, but I've kind of grown to appreciate it. On the other hand, on the debut Kiss album, they come out swinging. They come out very strong, and we have some of their most classic hits on this debut album. Strutter is great. Very catchy song. Nothing to Lose is flat out hilarious. I mean, if you just listen to the lyrics, it is so incredibly sleazy. But again, it's got kind of a 50s feel to it, a 50s boogie feel to it, but it works so much better than when AC/DC attempted this. Firehouse is a Paul Stanley song. I was never too much of a fan of it when I initially heard it back in college, but I've really grown to appreciate it. You know, Firehouse! Great song, and I have heard them play that before in concert. Cold Gin, song by Ace Frehley, sung by Gene Simmons. It is one of my favorite Kiss songs ever. I have heard Kiss play it many, many times, and I loved it. I heard Ace play it the one time I saw his solo act, and I absolutely loved it. Deuce is pure Gene Simmons. It's amazing. 100,000 Years got a nice little bass intro, very, very groovy rhythm. I love it. But one of the highlights is definitely the album closer, Black Diamond. Written by Paul Stanley, sung by Peter Criss. Starts out with a nice little acoustic intro, and then it just starts kicking and kicking. And I just gotta love that chorus, as simplistic as it is. You know, ooh, Black Diamond, dun 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 dun. This round is really no contest in my opinion. AC/DC did not come out with their best work. Kiss, however, came out with a very strong record, and this round is going to go to Kiss. So we have 1 round for Kiss and 0 rounds for AC/DC. Let's see how we fare on round number 2. We have the second album by both artists. We have TNT by AC/DC, and we have Hotter Than Hell by Kiss. And as far as AC/DC goes, this is a huge, huge improvement. We've got some of their best songs, their most well-known songs ever on TNT. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. Love it. Great guitar intro, and believe it or not, they actually pull out the bagpipes on this one. Very creative decision, I have to say, but the sound is just so incredibly different than that debut High Voltage album. It just sounds a lot more clean, a lot more crisp, and it just flows so much better. Love Rock and Roll Singer. Kind of silly, but I like it. The jack is utterly ridiculous. Fun fact, the lyrics that they sing on the TNT album, those were not the lyrics that were originally intended. The lyrics that they originally intended are found on their live releases actually. But yeah, from what I've read, the record company told them they had to change the lyrics because they were way too suggestive. Livewire closes out the side very well. Then we have TNT, you know, TNT. Comes on the radio all the time. I think I've heard it a few too many times, but that's okay. It sounds pretty good live. Rocker is, again, another little tribute back to the 50s. It's pretty decent. Can I Sit Next to You, Girl was one of the very first songs they ever wrote together. And then we have the song High Voltage and a cover of Chuck Berry's School Days, which, it's great. I think it's a great cover. Hotter Than Hell, on the other hand, is still good, but not quite as good as that debut record. I mean, the real thing that brings down Hotter Than Hell is definitely the production. It sounds very dark and sludgy, and not quite what I would want from a band like Kiss. But I mean, Got to Choose is not really the best opener, but it's serviceable. Parasite is great. Written by Ace, sung by Gene. I've never been much of a fan of Going Blind, but I do like the title track. Let Me Go Rock and Roll is a pretty decent rocker. It's pretty simplistic, only about 2 minutes or so. I do like All the Way. I love Watching You. Mainline is a song that Peter Criss sang. It was written by Paul Stanley. Not quite my favorite. Neither is Coming Home. But it concludes with Strange Ways, which was written by Ace, sung by Peter. It's what really sets Strange Ways apart from the rest of the album is just the rhythm. It's got such the dark rhythm, even though I kind of was down on that earlier, it just complements the song so well, and that guitar solo in the middle is considered to be one of the very, very best. I just think Strange Ways is a very well-written song, and I think that really sets it apart from the rest of the album. But having said that, TNT is going to defeat Hotter Than Hell in this round. So we now have 1 round for AC/DC and 1 round for Kiss. So we now have a tie. We now come to round number 3. From AC/DC, we have Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. And from Kiss, we have Dressed to Kill. And I thought Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap was an improvement over TNT. I think the songwriting is much, much stronger. And I really, really love this one as a kid. Now, I had the international version as a kid. Now I have switched to the Australian release, and there are some differences, but not too much. Title track, classic. Ain't no fun waiting around to be a millionaire. This thing is over 7 minutes, which is kind of odd for AC/DC. It's kind of a long length for AC/DC, but I like it from start to end. It just keeps building upon itself, which I love. There's going to be some rocking, again, kind of still more of having kind of a 50s or 60s vibe, but it's pretty good. Problem Child, love that one. Ever since I was a kid, I love it. I am hot, and when I'm not, I'm cold as ice. Get out of my way, or step aside, or pay the price. Great lyrics, love it. This is the version that has the coda at the end, so I do kind of enjoy that. Squealer sounds a lot like Soul Stripper from High Voltage, but I think it improves upon it, and the sound is much, much better. Big Balls is absolutely ridiculous. R.I.P. Rock and Peace is kind of disposable, but Ride On is a pretty good bluesy, I wouldn't call it a rocker, but it's a nice blues number. It's pretty serviceable. Jailbreak, however, is certainly the highlight of the album. It is thunderous, it is epic, and it's even better on their live album. Dressed to Kill, I did a Kiss album ranking video a long time ago, and I didn't really talk as highly about Dressed to Kill as some of you may have been expecting me to, but I mean, it's good for what it is, but out of the classic era, I think it is definitely the weakest album. I like Room Service. I like Two-Timer. I have never liked Ladies in Waiting. I do like Getaway, written by Ace, sung by Peter. Rock Bottom, I don't think I like it as much as some other people do. Come On and Love Me is all right. We have Anything for My Baby. Nah. I do like She. It predates Kiss. They wrote it back when they were in Wicked Lester, and I really enjoy it. Love Her All I Can is decent. Then, of course, we have Rock and Roll All Night. We've all heard it a cajillion times. But, I mean, Dressed to Kill sounds a little bit more pop rock than what they had previously done. I think they were kind of trying to overcompensate from the very sludgy atmosphere of Hotter Than Hell. But either way, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap is going to defeat Dressed to Kill. So that brings us up to 2 rounds for AC/DC. And 1 round for Kiss. Let's see how we do in round number 4. This one is going to be tough. We have Let There Be Rock by AC/DC versus Destroyer by Kiss. Oh, 2 of my favorite albums ever. Now, I said this in the introduction. I have the resurrected version of this album on CD. I have the original version on vinyl. I am going to be comparing Let There Be Rock with the original mix. So even though I am showing you the resurrected version, I am referring to the original 1976 mix. I just did an album rant episode of Let There Be Rock, and I spoke very, very highly of it. I love Go Down and Dog Eat Dog. Let There Be Rock, the title track, is one of my favorite songs ever. It is mighty, it is epic, it is raunchy, it is raw, it has everything that I love. Same thing with Bad Boy Boogie. Overdose is an underrated gem. Whew, I just love the build-up into it. Crabsy in Blue, and yes, I am not considering Problem Child, which is on the international release. I am considering Crabsy in Blue. Definitely the dumbest song on here. But I do like Hell Ain't a Bad Place to Be. And Whole Lotta Rosie is a very bluesy rocker, which closes things out very, very nicely. And I think I told you the story about that one in that episode of Album Rant. And yes, Let There Be Rock is a classic. Loved it since I was a kid. Now, here we have Destroyer. And again, I am only counting tracks 1 through 9. I'm not counting the bonus track. Well, actually, there's a hidden track, which is track 10. But that bonus track is not being considered. Detroit Rock City. What an opener, okay? It is thunderous. It is heavy, but it's not underproduced, nor is it overproduced. Bob Ezrin was the producer, and man, he found such a happy medium. Segues very well into King of the Nighttime World. Great rocker. I hear it's actually a cover, but I think Paul Stanley kind of added his own thing to it. I have loved it ever since the first time I heard it. God of Thunder. That is Gene Simmons' signature song, even though it was actually written by Paul. Gene sings it, and originally it was much faster, but it was Bob Ezrin who convinced him to slow it down, make it doomier, and have Gene sing it, and man, it works so well. It is an epitome of madness. Great Expectations. No. Flaming Youth, yes, I do like that one. Pretty straightforward rocker. Sweet Pain is another Gene Simmons song. It does much better. And again, I am not considering the remastered and rediscovered Lost Ace Frehley solo that was not on the original mix. Shout It Out Loud is a song we all know. Definite classic. It's very anthemic. Then we have Beth. The one song that Peter Criss sings, and it was actually their biggest hit ever. And it's quite ironic, because it's barely a Kiss song. Gene, Paul, and Ace have nothing to do with it. They did not write it. They have no writing credits. They do not perform on it. Peter Criss sings. Peter Criss wrote a few lines, but mostly this was written by Stan Pendridge and Bob Ezrin. The orchestration? Nope, Kiss wasn't performing that. The guitar was actually performed by Dick Wagner of Alice Cooper. So yeah, quite ironic. Their biggest hit, barely a Kiss song. But it closes out very well with Do You Love Me? But this is such a tough call. 2 of my favorite albums ever, but Let There Be Rock is the winner. I pined over this one so much, I have got to give it to Let There Be Rock. AC/DC is going to win. So we have 3 rounds for AC/DC, 1 round for Kiss. So now we go to round number 5. We have Powerage by AC/DC versus Rock and Roll Over by Kiss. And Powerage starts out very well. Rock and Roll Damnation. Very catchy song, and it kind of sounds like, to me at least, it sounds a lot like Hot Blooded by a Foreigner, and they came out the same year, so I'm not exactly sure who may or may not have been influenced by who. Down Payment Blues. Such an underrated classic. This thing is hard. This thing is heavy. I love Down Payment Blues. Gimme a Bullet is another raunchy, aggressive rocker. It's great. Riff Raff is the main anthem on this album. Great guitar solo intro. Fast, thunderous. It's great live. Love Sin City. It's a very sleazy number, probably about Las Vegas, probably. It's great. Unfortunately, the second side doesn't do quite as well as the first, but it does do pretty well. Like What's Next to the Moon, Gone Shootin's a little bit more bluesy and laid back, but it's still great. I think it was actually featured in the Beavis and Butthead movie, I want to say. Up in My Neck and You is decent. Kicked in the Teeth is pretty ridiculous, but, still gotta love it. But then we have Rock and Roll Over. Whoops. Sorry about that. I Want You, I don't think I quite like as other people do. I mean, the acoustic intro is a little off-putting, but it does start picking up a bit. I do like Take Me. Fast, aggressive, sleazy, great. The very first line is, put your hand in my pocket, hold on to my rocket. Yeah, we got that. Callin' Dr. Love is the Gene Simmons song that this album is most well known for. And, you know, I really like it. I think Gene really pulled it off here. Great rhythm, very sleazy, and works very well in my opinion. I do not like Ladies' Room. Baby Driver is okay. That's the one song that Peter Criss sings on this one. No, one song he wrote, he sings two songs. I think they started letting him write songs after the success of Beth. Makes sense. Love 'Em and Leave 'Em is kind of disposable. So is Mr. Speed and See You in Your Dreams. Hard Luck Woman. Written by Paul. Sung by Peter. Definitely trying to replicate the success of Beth. And I like it. It's acoustic. It's a little bit softer. But man, it is well written. They originally wrote it for Rod Stewart, but they decided to perform it themselves, and I think that was a great, great decision. Making Love also is a pretty good closer, pretty standard rocker, but to be perfectly frank, Rock and Roll Over, I think, is a pretty good album. Powerage does blow it away, so AC/DC is going to win this round. We now have 4 rounds for AC/DC and 1 round for Kiss. Now, in this next round, we are going to conclude the Bon Scott era with Highway to Hell versus Love Gun. Highway to Hell is a classic. Highway to Hell is an anthem. Comes on the radio all the time. We have all heard it. We all recognize it. I'm on a highway to hell. Overplayed, but at the same time, it's amazing. I like Girls Got Rhythm. The song, actually, what I love about it is the rhythm. Girls got a rhythm, girls got a rhythm, rock and roll with the rhythm. Messed that up. We have Walk All Over You, a little disposable. I do like Touch Too Much. Same thing with Beating Around the Bush. But Shot Down in Flames is another definite highlight from this album. Get It Hot is, it's kind of short. It's doesn't really quite hit the mark. Probably one of the weaker songs on here, but definitely worth a listen. But then we have If You Want Blood, You've Got It. Probably the big centerpiece of side 2. Okay? It absolutely rocks. Okay? I have loved this song ever since I was a kid. Dun, 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 dun. And I'm not going to be able to do it correctly, so I guess I should stop trying. Love Hungry Man. And then, of course, it ends with Night Prowler. A little bit slower, a little bit bluesier, but great nonetheless. I think it was attacked quite a bit for its lyrics, and I can definitely kind of see that. Love Gun, on the other hand, starts out pretty well with I Stole Your Love. You know, great opener, pretty simplistic. Big radio hit, which I definitely respect and everything. But I Stole Your Love starts things out pretty well, and it's written by Paul Stanley. Now, unfortunately, this really is not Gene's album. He doesn't do a bad job here, but Gene's songs on this one are a little underwhelming in comparison to what else is on the album. I have never been such a fan of Christine 16. I just haven't. I don't think it's that good. Got Love for Sale is a little bit better. It's another Gene song, but definitely the highlight from side 1 is Shock Me. This is the very first time that Ace ever sang on a Kiss album. He had written songs before. He wrote Cold Gin. He wrote Strange Ways. He wrote Getaway. He wrote, he had a writing credit on Flaming Youth. So writing is nothing that he's a stranger to, but he had never actually sang on a song before. And this is the first time he does. He may not quite be the best singer, but this song is very noteworthy for being the very first one that Ace ever sang on. But man, is it a great song. And that guitar solo in the middle is absolutely electrifying. No pun intended. Actually, I back up. Pun very much intended. Tomorrow and Tonight is trying to replicate the success of Rock and Roll All Night, and it does a pretty decent job, but doesn't quite measure up. At least in my opinion. But Side 2 starts out very strong with the title track. Very anthemic. They played this song every single time I saw them in concert. Paul flies out into the middle of the crowd. There's a little platform out in the middle, and he plays the song out there. Great. Very anthemic, very thunderous. And you pull the trigger of my love gun, love gun. Hooligan is the Peter Criss song, and I enjoy it. I think it's actually really good. It's very underrated. Don't think they never really played that one too much, but I really liked it. Almost Human, not really digging it. I mean, let me back up. This is a great album. I ranked it very high. But in comparison to the rest of the album, Almost Human and Plaster Caster fall a little bit short compared to what else this album is capable of. Then we have a cover of Then She Kissed Me, or actually Then He Kissed Me, but obviously they had to change it to Then She Kissed Me, which is I think a 50s or no, 60s Motown song. And, you know, they actually do a pretty good job. That song is pretty hated by the Kiss community. I don't mind it. But, unfortunately, I really think that Highway to Hell is going to nudge out Love Gun here. And AC/DC now has 5 rounds and Kiss has 1. So the score is now 5-1. Now, the Bon Scott era is over. Now, Brian Johnson is the lead vocalist of AC/DC. And it kicks off with Back in Black versus Dynasty by Kiss. Now, Back in Black is considered by many to be the best AC/DC album. And I don't think it's quite the best, but it's still very, very, very good. Starts out with Hell's Bells, instant classic. Love Shoot to Thrill. What Do You Do for Money, Honey actually may be the best song on here. I'm not joking. It's great. Giving the Dog a Bone, I always thought that would be kind of a disposable song, but it's great. I mean, again, it's very aggressive, very fast, and yeah, just sleazy, and I love it. Let Me Put My Love Into You. Yeah. They're not really leaving much to subtlety here, but it's kind of bluesy, not quite my favorite. Then we come to the title track. I think I've heard a few too many times. Yeah. Then we have You Shook Me All Night Long. Think I've heard it a few too many times. Have a Drink on Me isn't bad. Shake a Leg isn't bad. I mean, it's much faster than Have a Drink on Me. Then we have Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution. Noise Pollution. Very, very bluesy number by Trade, by Concept. But, I mean, it closes things out very, very well, and it's pretty catchy. Then we have Dynasty. Starts off with I Was Made for Loving You. Ooh. Yeah. A lot of Kiss fans and a lot of Kiss members hate this song. And yeah, it does sound kind of disco-y. The production on this album was definitely a move towards pop rock. Very, very glossy, and it almost sounds like a disco album. 2000 Man is a cover of a Rolling Stones song. I love it, however. Ace sings it, and it definitely redeems I Was Made for Loving You. Sure Know Something, I actually do really love that one. Again, the rhythm I think is very, very good, and I think it's very well written, despite the very glossy production. Dirty Livin' is the one song Peter Criss sings and writes on here. His involvement with the band was starting to dwindle right around this point, and yeah, he was pretty much out in about a year or so. Charisma, I do not like. Magic Touch is not quite Paul's best or the band's best. Hard Times is written and sung by Ace. It's serviceable. Not a big fan of X-Ray Eyes or Save Your Love is okay. So, I don't think Dynasty is as bad as some people say it is, but it is absolutely no match for Back in Black. Back in Black is going to defeat Dynasty very, very easily. It was not very close this time. So we have 6 rounds for AC/DC and 1 round for Kiss. So let's see what round number 8 holds in store for us. We have For Those About to Rock, We Salute You by AC/DC. Let me get the score in there. Versus Unmasked by Kiss. And neither of these were quite as good as what came before it. But I mean, that's not to say that it's bad or anything. I mean, For Those About to Rock, We Salute You starts out with a very anthemic title track. Still played on the radio today, and it's usually the closer for their live shows, and it is a very, very strong AC/DC song. I do love Put the Finger on You. Let's get it up. Very catchy, kind of simplistic, very simplistic actually, kind of run-of-the-mill, but I gotta love it. Inject the Venom is a little bit weak, so is Snowballed. I do like Evil Walks. COD, Call of the Devil is okay, but I do like Breaking the Rules, but Night of the Long Knives and Spellbound are starting to kind of run the formula. Unmasked, on the other hand, I cannot stand. I ranked this one very, very low. I think I ranked it 21st out of 24. That is how low I put it. And man, what is wrong about this album is just the production. It sounds awful. Sounds, again, like a pop album. They took what we didn't like about Dynasty and just cranked it up to 11. Is That You as a cover? It's not good. Nor is Shandy. The only thing that is even remotely decent here is Ace Frehley's Talk to Me. And that's just because it's catchy. The sound is still hilariously awful. Naked City is a Gene song. It's bad. Two Sides of the Coin and Torpedo Girl. Yeah. That is the name of the song, okay? Torpedo Girl. They are the other 2 Ace songs, and they are the only ones that really bear any resemblance of anything being good. Unmasked absolutely fails as an album. For Those About to Rock, We Salute You wins. We have 7 rounds for Kiss, 7 rounds for AC/DC, and 1 round for Kiss. So now we're almost to the halfway mark. We have round number 9. Yes, we have Flick of the Switch by AC/DC versus Music from the Elder by Kiss. And yeah, Flick of the Switch is really starting to get very formulaic. A lot of these songs are not all that memorable. I just heard it again a few days ago, or maybe a few weeks ago, and I mean, it's very run-of-the-mill. Things are really starting to sound the same, not a whole lot of individuality. Rising Power is, I guess, all right. I do like This House is on Fire and the title track. Nervous Shakedown, I have never really been a huge fan of, but sometimes if a song is very bad, you kind of get fascinated by it. But Guns for Hire is definitely the highlight from this album. And yeah, a lot of these songs really start to run together. Deep in the Hole. Yeah, I see what you did there. Music for the Elder. From the Elder, sorry. I'm tired. I respect what they were trying to do. They were trying to make a concept album. They were trying to bank off the success of The Wall by Pink Floyd that came out 2 years before this. This thing was supposed to have a very elaborate tour. It was supposed to be the script for a movie that never got made. And the big problem here, this music sounds nothing like Kiss. Man, the Oath, it's one of the very few hard rockers on here, but it just sounds off. Just a Boy, man, it's just bad prog rock. Dark Light is one of the few songs that sounds like Kiss. It is also one of the few songs that Ace wrote and sang on. Only You Know, Under the Rose is embarrassing. A World Without Heroes, man, it's just soft rock. It's not good. I don't like Mr. Blackwell. Escape from the Island is an instrumental. It is ironically the one other song on this album that Ace has a writing credit on. It's written by Ace, Eric Carr, their new drummer, and Bob Ezrin. It does kind of rock. But man, Odyssey is just bad. This album is bad. I'm not a huge fan of either of these, but if I had to pick one, it's definitely Flick of the Switch. I mean, yeah, it's formulaic and more of the same, but it's at least good more of the same. I respect Kiss for trying to do something different, but it just did not work. 8 rounds for AC/DC, 1 round for Kiss. So let's see how round number 10 goes. Yes, we're on round number 10. We have Fly on the Wall by AC/DC versus Creatures of the Night by Kiss. Fly on the Wall, they had to trade out their drummer. Phil Rudd had to leave the band and was replaced by Simon Wright. This is considered to be one of the worst AC/DC albums out there. And yeah, some of the songs, again, are very formulaic, very much more the same, but at the same time, I don't think it's quite as bad as a lot of people say it is. I do like the sound on it. It sounds very, very heavy. The title track is good. Shake Your Foundations is the worst song on here. I do like First Blood. I love Danger. Sink the Pink is a pretty good song. The second half is not quite as good, but again, it does have its moments. But again, I think the sound really elevates this album, and I think it's a lot better than a lot of people say it is. I really think you need to give another listen. Having said all that, it is no match for Creatures of the Night. Creatures of the Night was their big comeback album, and man, they had a statement to make. This thing totally redeems themselves from the previous 3 albums. Dynasty, Unmasked, and The Elder were not good. This is Kiss at their very, very best. The title track is amazing. Saint and Sinner is also amazing, very dark. Keep Me Coming, yeah, I know what they did there. It's a little bit more upbeat, but again, the sound, the very heavy sound just really elevates it. I love Rock and Roll Hell. Apparently written about Ace Frehley, who left the band shortly before this was released, and he never actually plays on this one. The guitar work was done by Vinnie Vincent and, well, a lot of people, but man, I love Rock and Roll Hell. Danger is the weakest song on here, and hey, what do you know? Both Kiss and AC/DC have a song called Danger on both these albums. I just realized that. I Love It Loud is an anthem. It is definitely the highlight from this album. Gene had really kind of been dropping the ball in the last couple of albums. He really redeems himself here. This is Gene's album through and through. I Still Love You is a very dark ballad. Killer is pretty by the numbers, run of the mill, but man, War Machine, you better watch out, 'cause I'm a war machine. Killer, closer. They used to play this one in concert all the time when I would see them. And as much as I think Fly on the Wall is underrated, it is no match for Creatures of the Night. Kiss is going to win this round. So we now have 8 rounds for AC/DC and 2 rounds for Kiss. So let's keep going forward. We have Who Made Who by AC/DC versus Lick It Up by Kiss. And this is kind of an interesting situation because Who Made Who has some new tracks on it, but it was actually used as the soundtrack for some Stephen King film that was based off one of his novels. I've never actually seen it, but it does feature the music of AC/DC. So yeah, we have that. I am only going to count the new songs. I am not going to count songs like You Shook Me All Night Long and Sink the Pink and Hell's Bells and Shake Your Foundations, and For Those About to Rock, We Salute You. Having said all that, the new songs are pretty decent. Who Made Who is a little bit laid back, but again, the sound works and the rhythm works. The other two new songs are DT and Chase the Ace. They are both instrumentals, but I do love them, and yeah, the sound really works on this one. Lick It Up, however, is still riding the coattails of Creatures of the Night, and it's still very amazing. Exciter, great opener. I love Not for the Innocent. Gene sings that one, and man, he knocks it out of the park. Gene is back, everybody, for a little bit. The title track is the most well-known song from this album. They played it all the time in concert. I loved it. Don't wanna wait till you know me better. Young and Wasted, another killer Gene song. I love Gimme More. But my favorite song from Lick It Up is probably All Hell's Breaking Loose. It's a very, very interesting arrangement. It's one of 4 songs that all 4 members have a writing credit on, but drummer Eric Carr was really the brains and the genius behind All Hell's Breaking Loose. And man, I love that chorus. It sounds so ferocious. I love it. The verses actually have a rap arrangement, believe it or not. I think it was Paul's idea to incorporate rap into this, and that really sounds like the kind of thing that would fall flat on its face. And it very easily could have, but it works. The rest of the album may not quite be as strong as what came before, as the first 6 songs, but I do think things close out very, very nicely with, and on the 8th day, God created rock and roll. But, yeah, I think a lot more highly of Lick It Up. Lick It Up is going to defeat Who Made Who, so Kiss is going to win that round. We now have 8 rounds for AC/DC and 3 rounds for Kiss. So, let's press forward. This would be the last album that drummer Simon Wright ever performed on to date. We have Blow Up Your Video by AC/DC versus Animalize by Kiss. And I think both of these were a step down from what came before it. Yeah. Blow Up Your Video, it's very flat. It's not very inspired. I don't think the songwriting is that good. And again, we're really drifting into more of the same, and I'm kind of asking myself, what are we doing with this album? Heat Seeker is all right. That's the Way I Want to Rock and Roll is all right. But I mean, Mean Streak, Kiss and Dynamite, Nick of Time, Rough Stuff, not very inspired and not really quite getting it done. Animalize, on the other hand, has a few highlights, mostly those from Paul. Gene was really starting to dissociate from the band. Apparently around this time in 1984, he had aspirations to try to be an actor. Yes, that actually happened. And so his involvement in the band was really starting to dwindle a bit. And yeah, we are kind of now starting to sink into more of an unfocused period of Kiss. They already went through this from Dynasty to The Elder. Now they're starting to sink into pop rock, which is not a very good direction to take. I do like I've Had Enough Into the Fire. Heaven's on Fire is one of their best songs, and yes, they did play that a lot in concert. I heard them play it in concert a lot when I saw it. It's one of the few non-makeup albums. Let me back up. It's one of the few non-makeup songs that they still played after they put the makeup back on. Whew, I don't know why that was so hard to say. I'm getting tired. It's okay. But Heaven's on Fire is very catchy, very silly, but very catchy, and I love it. Burn Bitch Burn is ridiculous. I do not mind Get All You Can Take. I do not mind Under the Gun or Thrills in the Night. But yeah, while the city sleeps and Murder and High Heels leave a lot to be desired. But not as much as Blow Up Your Video leaves to be desired. So, yeah, Animalize is going to win this round. We have another round for Kiss. That is 4 rounds for Kiss and 8 rounds for AC/DC. So we're about 2/3 of the way there. So let's press on. We now come to round number, where are we on now? 13. We have The Razor's Edge by AC/DC. And we have Asylum by Kiss. And I gotta say, I think The Razor's Edge is a big improvement over what came before it. I was not the biggest fan of Blow Up Your Video, and they got Bruce Fairbairn to produce this one. I'm not sure how you say his name. I am sure I mispronounced that. Please do not please not be too brutal to me in the comments section. But it kicks off with Thunderstruck, one of the most well-known AC/DC songs, absolute anthem. I loved it as a kid. Maybe it is kind of a silly song, but man, it gets your blood pumping. Fire Your Guns is also another underrated classic. I love it. Money Talks is the other big hit from this album, and it still comes on the radio, I believe, and I still think they do play that in concert. And again, it's a very, very silly song, but it does also kind of conform to the format that a lot of these songs conform to. Verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. Even as a kid, I was able to point that out, but it's a pretty good song. The Razor's Edge is kind of dark. The title track is kind of dark. I still like it. Mistress for Christmas, it's kind of a holiday song. Disposable. But yeah, a lot of the rest of these songs don't really leave much of an impression. Rock Your Heart Out, Are You Ready's not bad. Yeah, we got You by the Balls, Shot of Love, If You Dare. Not really blowing the roof off here, but again, it does come out very, very strong, and those first 4 songs are great AC/DC songs. Asylum, however, is not one of my favorites. Gene is once again dropping the ball here. His songs just are not that good. King of the Mountain is kind of flat. I actually don't mind any way you slice it. But yeah, Who Wants to Be Lonely? Trial by Fire is terrible. I'm Alive, very forgettable. So is Love's a Deadly Weapon. Tears Are Falling is not bad. It isn't. They still, back when they were still touring, they did bring that one out of the archives, and I still do like it, but it's still far from their best work. Secretly Cruel is not good, and All Night is pretty ridiculous and has some very Spinal Tap-like lyrics. This is a tough one, but AC/DC is going to prevail. When The Razor's Edge is good, it's better than when Asylum is good, and The Razor's Edge is good more often than Asylum. So we now have 9 rounds for AC/DC, and we have 4 rounds for Kiss. So let's see how this matches up. We have 1995's Ballbreaker by AC/DC versus 1987's Crazy Nights by Kiss. And both of these are not, again, these remaining rounds are going to be very far from these artists' best work. So we kind of just have to see which one pulls it off better. Ballbreaker is produced by Rick Rubin. I think he is a great producer. He's also produced some Metallica albums, and I think they sound very, very good. Hard as a Rock is a great opener. Cover You in Oil is all right. I do like the Honey Roll, Burnin' Alive, and of course the title track. The title track closes things out very, very nicely. Great production, great sound. The band seems on point, but again, the songwriting, we're again just falling into the realm of repetition, and there's not much that leaves much of an impression, but when it's good, it's good. I have heard a lot of people trash Crazy Nights, and well, I'm going to say they do have a point. This is definitely the most pop rock Kiss album they have ever made. There are synthesizers on this album. I do not know why there are synthesizers on this album. The song is not good. It's not what I'm saying. The sound is not good at all. Man, there should not be keyboards ever on a Kiss album. What kind of saves this one is the songwriting. So these albums are kind of the inverse of each other. Okay, Ballbreaker has a great sound, kind of lackluster songwriting. Crazy Nights has a horrible sound, but pretty decent songwriting. I do not like the title track, but I do like I'll Fight Hell to Hold You. I do like Bang Bang You, as ridiculous as it is. No No No, which was written by Gene and drummer Eric Carr, and then guitarist Bruce Kulick. I do like it. Hell or High Water is kind of disposable. My Way may be their very worst song ever, but Reasons to Live, it is a ballad. I know, it's a ballad. Kiss should not really be doing ballads, but as far as ballads go, you could do a lot worse. I really don't think it's that bad. Turn on the Night. I heard this song for the very first time on some VH1 retro channel. I saw the music video for it. I actually don't mind that one. I think it's well written. I think it's catchy. I'll say that. And Thief in the Night really closes things out okay. So, which one do I pick? Ballbreaker or Crazy Nights? This is really a tough one because I don't think either one is that bad, but I don't think either one is that good. But I'm going to have to give this one to Ballbreaker. I think AC/DC is going to prevail here, and I'm going to stand by that. And so we now have 10 rounds for AC/DC and 4 rounds for Kiss. So let's wrap this up. We have 2000's Stiff Upper Lip versus 1989's Hot in the Shade. I see what you did there. HITS. They think they're writing hits now. I don't know if that was intentional, but it's a thing. Now, as far as Stiff Upper Lip goes, this is an album that took me a very, very long time to really get into. I had heard the title track on the radio. I got into AC/DC once this album actually came out. So this was the one that was being promoted left and right back when I was a kid, back when I was a freshman in high school. I thought the title track was okay. I thought Safe in New York City was okay. But a few years ago at a concert, you're just sitting around waiting for the band to come out. They were playing this over the loudspeaker. They were playing this album. I heard the title track. I'm like, all right, that's Stiff Upper Lip. And then the next 5 songs I heard, I was like, wow, this is pretty good actually. Meltdown, I love it. House of Jazz is good. So is Hold Me Back. They're very catchy songs. Again, they're falling into the same format as before, but man, they are catchy. I like Satellite Blues, and it ends very well with Give It Up. Pretty solid album, actually. I think it's underrated, and I think it's worth a new listen, or another listen. Hot in the Shade, on the other hand, has got a ton of filler. A ton of songs that just don't really go anywhere. And they just don't leave an impression. They're just not that good. Rise to It is okay. But Trade is all right. Hide Your Heart, no. Prisoner of Love, no. Read My Body, no. Bad song. Not a good one. Love's a Slap in the Face. Again, more filler. Forever, guys, is an acoustic ballad, and I'm not going to lie, when I first heard it, I was like, it's not a bad acoustic ballad. It was co-written by Michael Bolton, of all people. Yes, that Michael Bolton, along with Paul Stanley, and it's catchy, but again, it's an acoustic ballad, and I'm not really quite sure if it's very Kiss-like, but you know, they tried something different. But yeah, Cadillac Dreams, not good. The Street Getteth and the Street Taketh Away, not good. The main highlight from this album, and I did mention this in my Kiss album ranking video, is definitely Little Caesar. It is the one and only time that drummer Eric Carr took the microphone. It is a great song. It is an underrated song. Well written, well sung, well performed. I love it. But at the same time, there is not really all that much on Hot in the Shade. There is at least a pretty substantial amount of material that is worthy of recognition on Stiff Upper Lip. Stiff Upper Lip is going to win. That makes 11 rounds for AC/DC and 4 rounds for Kiss. So now we come to round number 16. Yeah. We have 2008's Black Ice by AC/DC versus, 1992's Revenge by Kiss. And I guess Black Ice is kind of, it's kind of relatable to Hot in the Shade. It has 15 songs once again, and a lot of them are filler. A lot of them don't really go much of any place. Rock and Roll Train is pretty decent. I do like that one. That was the first song they played the one time I heard them in concert, and it's a great opener, but yeah. We have Big Jack, it's all right. I don't like Anything Goes. I do like War Machine, but yeah, there's not really much here aside from the title track, which is the last song, Black Ice, and it closes things out all right. Revenge, on the other hand, was a very definite comeback album. It kicks off with Unholy, and Gene just comes out with a very dark and doomy and sludgy opener, and man, it just sets the stage so well. I love Unholy. Take It Off is ridiculous, but not bad. We have Tough Love, Spit. Yeah, I see what they did there. Then we have God Gave Rock and Roll to You Too, which is a cover of an Argent song, and I think Paul and Gene kind of added a few lyrics to it, maybe some instrumentation, but it's very anthemic. It's from the Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey soundtrack, and yeah, I mean, I like it. This was another non-makeup song that they still performed in concert. I did hear them perform it once, and yeah, it's good. Domino is great. I do like Heart of Chrome and Thou Shalt Not. Every time I Look at You is the obligatory ballad. It doesn't fare too well. But I do like I just wanna forget you. See what they did there? Car Jam. I'm glad they put it on there, okay? It was a tribute to Eric Carr, who sadly died of cancer right around this time. He only actually performed the backup vocals to God Gave Rock and Roll to You Too. And he does perform on Car Jam, which was a jam session that he and Ace did back in 1981. Well, Bruce Kulick actually overdubs Ace Frehley's guitar work, but it doesn't matter. You're listening to it for Eric Carr, the drummer. It's a great closer, and I would put Revenge over Black Ice any day, and that is going to give me 5 rounds for Kiss and 11 rounds for AC/DC. 2 rounds left. We have 2014's Rock or Bust by AC/DC versus 1997's Carnival of Souls by Kiss. Now, Rock or Bust. It is the very first AC/DC album without founding member Malcolm Young. Very tragic. He died. He had been having some health problems, and he is not on this album. Very, very tragic. But I mean, I think it's their nephew, I want to say, Stevie Young. I could be wrong about that. Please don't be too brutal to me in the comments section if I am. But Stevie Young takes over the guitar duties for Malcolm Young. And we get this. I think it's a decent album. Title track is great. Play Ball is great. A lot of these songs, once again, are more the same, but the sound is very aggressive, and I actually do really like it. Carnival of Souls, however, I absolutely hate. This was the last non-makeup album. This thing is a grunge wannabe. It is a dreary, bleak album. I have heard a lot of people say they love this one. I am very happy for you. In fact, I'm jealous of you that you're able to find something in this album that I just don't see. I can't stand it. It is so hard to get through, and it's just so bleak and dreary and uninspired. Even the songwriting isn't really that great. I've never been a fan of grunge, and I don't know why Kiss is just trying to bank off what's popular at the time. Come on, guys, be your own thing. The only really notable thing about this album is it includes the one and only lead vocal performance by Bruce Kulick. He does sing I Walk Alone, which is the last song on the album, but it's still terrible. Even though Rock or Bust may not be the best AC/DC album, it is miles ahead of Carnival of Souls, and AC/DC is going to win this round. Now, we have round 18, the very last one. We have the most recent AC/DC album, Power Up, versus 1998's Psycho Circus. And as I said, we cannot go any further after this round because this is the last AC/DC album, so it's going to have to end right here. I'm sorry, but it just is. But little bit of trivia. The Rock or Bust tour by AC/DC was a complete and total disaster. They started out, and of course, Malcolm Young couldn't be on it due to health problems and tragically passing away. So they lost Malcolm Young. Phil Rudd, their longtime drummer, was on the album, but he ran into some legal troubles and could not play on the tour, so he was replaced with Chris Slade. Then, about halfway through the tour, Brian Johnson had some throat problems, and he had to be replaced by Axl Rose, of all people, from Guns N' Roses. And then finally, after the tour was over, Cliff Williams was he's their bassist, by the way, been with the band ever since Powerage, 1978. He was like, so much has changed, it's not the same band anymore, I'm gonna split. And so for a while, the band was basically just the Angus Young solo band. But for Power Up, everybody came back, okay? Brian Johnson was back. He was able to sing once again. Phil Rudd was back. Cliff Williams was back. And they all performed together on Power Up. So it actually is the same lineup as Rock or Bust. I don't think it's quite as good as Rock or Bust. I mean, Realize is all right. Shot in the Dark is all right. But yeah, the production on this album is very, very flat. The songwriting, once again, is just more of the same. And it's not bad. I mean, it's a very serviceable AC/DC album, but it's just serviceable. Very middle of the road. Psycho Circus is quite controversial. Namely because this was advertised as the big reunion. They're putting the makeup back on, Ace and Peter are back, and they're back in full swing. This is the band you grew up with, and this is the band that everybody loves. Well, the thing is this, Ace and Peter only actually appeared on this album minimally. Only when they absolutely had to. They made very, very extensive usage of session musicians. So when you listen to these songs, a lot of times it's not actually Ace and Peter playing lead guitar and drums. It's other people. Now, they have been doing this ever since the Destroyer days, so it's nothing new for Kiss, but at the same time, it is kind of a letdown. But the songwriting is great, I think, and the sound is great, I believe. I do like the title track. They still play that in concert. Within is very dark. I love it. It's a Gene song. I do like I Pledge Allegiance to the State of Rock and Roll. Pretty by the numbers, but pretty excellent. Into the Void is the best song on here. Ace wrote it and he sings it. I love Into the Void. The entire band, Ace, Paul, Peter, and Gene, they all play their instruments on it, and I think that's the only time they ever actually do that. Great song. I do not like We Are One. You Wanted the Best is kind of by the numbers, but fun fact, it is the one song out of their entire discography that all 4 members sing on. I don't think they all play their own instruments, but they do all sing on it. Raise Your Glasses. No. Don't really like that one. I Finally Found My Way is a ballad. Paul wrote it, and of course they let Peter sing it. Again, trying to reclaim the magic of Beth. Didn't really work. Dreamin'. Dreamin' is very interesting. It sounds a lot like I'm 18 by Alice Cooper, and it really sounds like a knockoff, so not really quite feeling that. But it does end very well with Journey of 1,000 Years. But to be honest, I really think I need to give this round to Psycho Circus. I think it's a lot better than Power Up. It sounds more crisp, sounds more aggressive, it flows much, much better, and the songwriting is still much, much stronger. So we end with 6 rounds for Kiss and 12 rounds for AC/DC. And AC/DC is going to be the winner. They are going to defeat Kiss. I know there are some Kiss haters out there, so you might be very happy with me. I know there's some Kiss lovers out there. You may not be so happy with me, but that is how it turned out. And I want to say thank you very much for joining me this evening. I had a very, very great time, and this was a great recording in my opinion. Sorry I stumbled over myself a few times, but I'm a teacher. I talked all day. Now I'm talking more. Anyways, I will be back next week if I have the time. But until then, have a very pleasant evening.